He is Straw and he is Parker. Together we are the Battlehammer. Well, apparently we being a incorrect word to use at the moment. Just Parky on my own here. I'm just at my painting desk. So, unsurprisingly, from the box in the background you can see Wild West Exodus stuff. So, at the last monthly mumble, I mentioned that I might do a project log vlog type thing about the new Wild West Exodus stuff that I will be picking up. It has since arrived. There it is. There's some of it. There's some of it there. Some of it a bit further back up there. There's a thing behind there as well, which is nice. So this is kind of an unboxing. I've already opened most of it just to have a look at it, and to make it easier because I'm holding the camera in one hand and I've only got one hand spare. So that makes it easier for me to get to things and talk about them. To begin with, I'm going to talk about the Confederate Rebellion and why I decided on them as my kind of next foray into Wild West Exodus. So they appealed to me at the beginning because they're cool looking rebel dudes. I mean, hopefully I won't get too much glare on that, but they're cool, right? They got like the old cappy caps, but they've also got cloaks and stuff, and bandages and stuff like that. I mean, they look really cool. I just like the miniatures. That was one big kind of reason behind it. Another reason is because at the moment I've got Enlightened Force, which I picked up at, I forget if it was Salute or if it was the Expo, but anyway, one of those places I bought a bunch of Enlightened stuff. A couple of guys you can see over there. There's a little Abomination Reaper, I think, Abomination Seeker, Abomination Widower. Got a little dog. I've got Countess Byron being all kind of slowly worked on bit by bit. And the Enlightened as a force are very focused on the faces and the kind of bosses being kind of really strong, and then the hands being kind of on the crappy side, generally speaking. You know, the normal kind of construct zombie type things are pretty lame, but you can resummon them. So they've got that kind of horde mode, kind of they die and then they come back, and then kind of that kind of zombie. They're all a bit crap, but there's so many of them and eventually they'll wear you down. And the faces are kind of pretty weird and out there. You know, you've got some of the big monstrosities, but you've also got some of the more interesting people, shall we say, like Dr. Francis Tumblety, who's Jack the Ripper, hence I picked him up. I don't know if he's any good or not. He's Jack the Ripper. I want him. Mine. So the Confederate Rebellion do fight in a completely different way. I think their faces and their bosses are more kind of support based. This guy, Stonewall Jackson, he's not like a combat monster on his own, but he does have a skill, a special rule called Rebel Yell, which means that the hands can get an extra point of limit so they can do more stuff in a turn. He's got strategy things so he can check the adventure cards in the deck and see what's coming up. So I thought it was a really different way of playing, because the hands in the Confederate Rebellion are individually kind of stronger. They've got some really good, interesting skills. Dead-eyed is in there. They've got Shrouded, so they're harder to hit. So they're kind of more of an elite force on the whole, and the faces and bosses are more support. And it was kind of the opposite in a sense of what the Enlightened are. Also, another reason for choosing them is in the Enlightened there's a faction box to be coming out, or a posse set coming out for a lady called Annabelle Hamilton. She is an Enlightened character, but she has a link to the Confederacy. She can do the Rebel Yell skill, as I mentioned. She's got that special attack. She does have the Confederate keyword, and there are definitely links within there in the fact that the Confederacy, because they're kind of the downtrodden, they've essentially lost the war at this point. They're just the last remnants kind of trying to rise up, and she's literally helping them rise up by attempting to kind of create more dudes for them. And this guy, I'll show you his posse card in a moment, but he can, because he's an outlaw, he can actually be part of a posse connected to a enlightened force. So I could have an enlightened force, and I could have his Confederate force as a kind of an ally to that. So it means that I can effectively use them as one big collection of miniatures. I didn't feel like I was buying a new army, it more felt like I was getting an expansion, so that was another reason. And I mean, they're cool, they've got, they've got cloaks, and yes, the idea of the Confederacy is quite politically charged, especially at the moment, but in this world, they're not, in the world of Wild West Exodus, they are not a direct mirror of how they are in the real world. In the Wild West Exodus world, they have been beaten, but they're kind of valiantly rebelling against the evil Union, or at least that's the way it's described from their perspective. So yeah, I liked them, so I thought I'll go and get about I think it's, I haven't worked it out exactly, but I think it's about 2,000 points. 1,500 is an army size, or kind of your standard army size, but I knew that I wanted to have extra choices because I'm not one to get an army and stick to it exactly, and there are a couple of models that I knew I wanted. So to begin with, I will have a look inside the Confederate Rebellion box. So this is the sleeve that goes around this box. On the back of the sleeve you can see who the people are somewhere. We got renders of, I think this guy's Jefford Williams, Stonewall Jackson, who's the boss, Tobias Franklin, who's got a big gun, a Confederate Terminator, who's got a pair of big guns, and a couple of these canine attack dogs. So that's what you get in the posse set. Now they do these, I think on the website they are marked at £35 if I remember rightly, and they also do come as double boxes where you get the gummings as well for about 50. So it's a great little starter set. I knew that getting this box and a hands box of the snipers and kind of, they're called bandits, scouts, whatever, I knew that was going to kind of do a good start of an army. If you want to kind of keep up at home, if you go on the Wild West Exodus website, which I believe is just at www.wildwestexodus.com, that will be a link. There are links there to all of the cards. You can download the rules and see what all of these guys do, but I'll kind of describe in vague details. So there we've got the box that the posse came in. There's a cool leaflety thing. Now there's a lion person who I believe is for the Celestials, who I think are the Oriental type people in this world. And there's a lady from Infernal Affairs who's a law person. And inside we have some things which are getting quite badly glared, so that's fun. So we've got a set of cards. One thing to note is that the cards are, at time of recording, these cards are version 1.00, but they do have 1.03 on the website. So these particular ones aren't out of date because I've checked these and they're all the same. But there are cards that are slightly different. So you've got an Outlaw Faction Armory card. On the back you've got the mounts that you can buy for the dude. So this is all your extra weapons for your units, how many points they cost at the end there, and what they do. They're slightly taller than sleeves. I think sleeves for these kind of size cards generally come up to about there, but you don't need sleeves because there's nothing to write on them. I mean, maybe they do make sleeves that are the right size. I don't know how well you can see it, but the printing's really nice and crisp. You can read everything even though it's quite small. Nice and easy to read, which is good. We've also got a conditions card, which has got what on lookout and hunkered down means, yellow checks, the 3 different kinds of negative conditions you can have. A set of the unit common rules. Deadeyes is of particular note to the Rebel Snipers because they have that, and that's a cool thing where you can pick off individual members of units who are armed with certain weapons. So that's quite cool. And then we've got the Posse Outlaw Faction Posse, which is the posse card for Stonewall Jackson if he's being a mercenary outlaw, and he can have mercenary dudes. Or you have the Confederate Rebellion theme posse, where you have his like outlaw Confederate units and stuff like that. So it's quite nice that he's got a standard version of being an outlaw, but he's also got this theme of being a Confederate. So that's quite handy. So it is worth checking these out, because they're available to download for free online. It's worth checking these out before you buy anything to see, you know, do I need Ben Hamilton or a Confederate Hands unit? I need at least one of those. So if I'm going to start playing, I should probably buy one of those, which I did. So that's good. And then we've got the cards, the stat cards. There's various keywords at the top. This symbol means he's an outlaw. There are different symbols, not in this box, but they all have different symbols. You've got fortune, which is kind of a luck point system. Points cost. Going clockwise from the top, we've got Q, which is quickness, mind, aim, grit, fighting, and limit. And limit is as many things as you can do in a turn. You've got all his weapon stats down the bottom there, and what they can do. And on the back you've got their common rules and their special rules. And quite a nice little touch is it has their base size, because they should be on the bases they're on. And it does matter, not necessarily for movement purposes, but because something can only move over something as tall as its base. So for example, this lady here, Countess Augusta Byron, as glorious as she is, if I tilt her base up that way, that's as high as she can step over. Whereas this guy, who's an Abomination Widower, has a wider base and can therefore get over taller objects. So it does make a difference in the game. So the cards, yeah, they feel nice. They're not, you know, they're cards. They're really. I do like the fact that the printing has come out very clear. I don't know how well it's coming across on the camera, but the printing is very clear. Everything's very readable. I like that they've got this version 1.00 in there, because if they're not version 1.00, then you know. So that's useful. They are releasing a set of faction decks for all of the factions, so I'm not hugely concerned if some of these have changed a little bit. I can always update the card itself, or you can go download and print them off, so that's fine, but I'll probably get the faction cards when they come out at some point. So I suppose we better have a look at the miniatures, because we've got some bases, they're the weird, not the weird, they're the these kind of stepped type bases. I don't know what you call them. Not stepped is probably not the right word, but they're like that. So I think I can move my light again. There we go. So this is the sprue for the attack dogs. These are new plastics by War Cradle Studios. These aren't I think they're the original moulds, in that they are the same sculpt, but they're not. They only did them in resin before, so these are the first kind of plastics, and they're really nice. I've already built one, as you can see over there, but I'm glad to get some more, because I think these are going to be pretty good in game, because they're very, very fast indeed, and you should be able to get up in your opponent's grill nice and quick. Throwing all this stuff out and losing it again. We've got, I believe that is Jefford, the guy with the big gun, and some legs, or is it Franklin? I'm not entirely sure. We've got some legs. Yeah, I don't know how well it's going to focus, but the detail's nice and crisp. There's not a huge amount of mould line to worry about, not any that I can actually see at the moment, which is good. The resin, as you can tell, so I probably will go over them just to double check, but I mean there's always going to be a tiny amount of flash, but I was looking at these earlier on and I did find that going over them with a toothbrush, a dry toothbrush, is usually enough to get any flash off. I mean, if you're super concerned about mould lines, then there really isn't a huge amount there, so that's good. We have some guns, and Stonewall Jackson himself with all of his pouches and whatnot, standing on an ammo crate because he's a general and that's what they do. He's like waving his sword. Got some nice gunnage. Yeah, the detail's really nice. It's really crisp. You can see on Jackson's back that detail's really crisp with those pouches and stuff. I'm looking forward to painting that. Very little in the way of mould lines at all. A little bit of flash, like I say, but nothing to worry about. Then in this bag we've got the Confederate Terminator, basically a big guy with two miniguns, kind of nails. So yeah, big fella again, details nice and crisp. There is a little bit of flash, but there's nothing to worry about. In fact, there's what I thought was mould lines, and it's actually detail of the belt, so that's good. Nice gun. And that's his gun and alternate head options. That's cool. And that can go back in there. So that was what I knew I kind of was going to get, because I was going to get the starter box anyway, because it seemed like a logical choice. Here we have the Rebel Scout and Dixie Sniper sprue. Yes, I did get 2 boxes because I knew I wanted more than 5 snipers, because they're cool and hardcore. Again, I believe these have been out in plastic before, so these are the original Outlaw miniature sculpts, but they're owned by Warcradle. But again, very little in the way of mould line. Nice crisp detail. Multi-part, but they're single pose, so I'll show you that. I mean, you don't want to see this plastic, do you? You want to see what they're going to look like finished. So they are single pose, but actually after playing Guild Ball for so long, I'm actually quite liking single pose models because they tend to have a bit more character. They're not just generic standing bods. Like there's a pointing dude, there's a kind of on scout like looking dude, there's a kneeling dude, you know, 2 guns Timmy over there, guy about to draw, running guy, you know, I like all that. It's kind of more interesting to me now. I am going to be converting one of the snipers to have a longer sniper rifle with probably a magazine or something. That'll be a juiced sniper rifle, which are better in game. So that's those guys. There's 2 boxes of those, and that way I know that I can switch up and have like 10 snipers or 10 scouts, or a mixture of the 2. Now I've got a box of attack dogs because, as I said, no secret that I really like them, so I'm not going to show you the sprue because I already showed it to you. Another good thing about them is that they can be used with any, or almost any, what's the word, posse. As you can see on the back there, Lawmen, Outlaws, Hex, Union, Enlightened and Crown. So knowing that I already play Enlightened and I'm interested in getting the Hex in a future date, kind of handy that they can go with any of those. So good times. Then we've got Belle Wilson. Now she is a sergeant, I believe, for the snipers and or scouts. Kind of sits better at sergeant. Again, like I say, if you want to know what these people all do, you can check out their website. Again, lovely casting on there. The details come out really nicely. You know, you can see her abs. And the detail on the gun's pretty good. And their cloaks and whatnot. I'm looking forward to painting all those. Interestingly, there's a mixture of packaging, because when Warcradle bought Outlaws IP, some of it's been repackaged, like this stuff, into these packages, and some of it hasn't, and some of it's still obviously their old stuff, because I mean they'll get around to it, but it's probably not their #1 priority, is it? And they want to actually sell stuff and make a game, because yeah, why wouldn't you? So here we've got Ben Hamilton, who's kind of like the second in command, and he's actually, if I remember correctly, the twin brother of Annabelle Hamilton, who will be the new posse boss for the Enlightened. So it'd be cool if I can put those two together. That's a nice idea. You know, I'll paint them with the same hair colour or whatever, you know, things like that make a big difference. So there he is, looking all cool. He's also got his foot on a rock, because miniatures have feet on things. Little backpacky type thing, and a crossbow, which is actually, I'm going to go into, not immediately after this, but I will go into another reason why I've chosen things, in that I'm glad that I've got him, because he's got an overcharged ability on his weapon, which means that when he shoots at robots, i.e. robot dogs and other such vehicles, they become stunned and things like that, so that's all good. Then there are two other guys I got. Now these guys are Ben Hamilton, Belle Wilson, the Scouts, everyone in the box are traditional Confederates. So I'll be painting them all up very similarly in the grey uniforms with the kind of sandy camo coloured cloaks. But I did also get another couple of guys who are up to no good, starting making trouble in my neighbourhood. References, I've got them. Who are this guy, who's the Wraith. He's got a long coat, and you can see in the shadows of his kind of in his body armour on the chest there, that almost looks skullish, and he's got almost skullish things on his kneecaps and scully type things on his shoulders. If you've seen him painted, or if you've seen the art for him, you will know that he's basically Cowboy Punisher. So that's going to be awesome. I mean, he's got a cool, like, repeating shotgun thing, which is Epic Win. He's all black with his white skull chest. So yeah, and he's a Confederate. So that's what, you know, it's like, oh, that'd be interesting to paint him up differently to the, you know, the rest of the army will all be basically the same. Grey Confederate style uniforms, sandy camo cloaks, that's kind of it. Whereas he's the Punisher. I mean, he's the Wraith, but he's the not Punisher. So that's cool. Who doesn't want that guy? Oh, excuse me. Bit of soup from earlier. And then lastly, but by no means leastly, we've got a fella called Slain. I mean, that just sounds cool, right? And he's a double pistol wielding fellow. I'm not even taking out the bag because reasons. Oh no, I probably should. It's an unboxing after all. Bonk. And there he is. Not focus at all. There we go. So he's got a nice detail on him. His cloak's billowing in the wind. There his two guns. He's also a Confederate who's got the Confederate keyword, but isn't necessarily the same as the other Confederates. So he wears a lot of very, very black clothes. He's got like a skull mask thing. And his metal all looks like cast iron, burnished steel kind of vibe. And there's his cloak from the back. So yeah, he's also a Confederate, but I'm looking forward to painting things slightly differently and trying out a few new techniques on these guys. You know, because they're going to be more characterful, more individuals. They also have the mercenary keyword. So that's another thing going into the Outlaws, that I knew that there is a mercenary, as you saw earlier on. The theme posse is basically, they're just mercenaries, so you can pick a lot of random odd dudes and have kind of bad cowboys. So that's probably what I'm going to look at next after I've done these. So that's the kind of the basic rundown of the things I got. I did get one or two little bits to expand my Enlightened force, but that's the Confederate stuff that I picked up. I'm going to be gluing it, I'm going to be taking you through what I do. Little things like, I know that I'm going to be washing the resin to get rid of any release agent or anything like that. If I need to do any prep, particularly on them, green stuffing, basing, and then I'll go through the whole project log, and eventually I'll be talking tactics, how I lose against straw with great ease with them, and why I've chosen certain guys because of their special abilities and whatnot. I mean, there are a couple of special abilities that I'm really glad are available in this army. One thing I made sure was I had a guy with Agile, for example. So Agile means that you can you automatically succeed on climb rolls and jump tests. So this guy can effectively move up and down and across buildings and stuff. His base move. I don't have to worry about whether he's going to fall off. Great for objective hunting if things like that are happening on the table. So I know that I've got this. I know my opponent doesn't have the agile skill. He's going to have to make those rolls. We played a game a little while ago, and I had these widowers, the guys. These guys, they've got agile as well. They can get up high and do stuff like that. So I knew that I wanted a guy who could get objectives, because if straw doesn't take him, then I can get up on the roof and he can't, or at least he will find it difficult. So I'll be going into more kind of tactical conversations as well. So that's it. Like I said before, do go and check the website out, the Wild West Exodus website, which is just wildwestexodus.com, and they've got all of the stat cards so you can play along at home, so you can see what they do, and see some of the artwork. I will be basically taking inspiration from the artwork when I paint them, because they are, although they're not historical as such, they do have a basis in the real world. So I will be, you know, kind of loosely basing my stuff on Confederate uniforms. Unfortunately, well, I say fortunately, but there is a kind of a historical community who do play American Civil War stuff, so it should be easy enough to find Confederate uniform painting tutorials, which I can then share with you, whether it be the full thing or my tweaked version. So one interesting thing to note is this guy, he's Stonewall Jackson, he's the general of the army. He's got yellow trim. That means he's a cavalryman. Did you know that, the internet? No, you didn't. Red trim I think is infantry. Blue trim I think is like, it's not navy, I think it's like medical and kind of auxiliary. See, I'm learning stuff. It's good, isn't it? So anyway, if you want to help me do more stuff like this, if you want to, then you can go here, boop, boop, and check out our Patreon page, which we would greatly appreciate it, because it's not that we do it for the money, but it takes money to do it. Bam. And as always, I hope you like that. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked it and want to subscribe. If you don't like it and don't want to subscribe, you don't have to like and subscribe, but we would like it if you liked and subscribed. Until next time, stay hello.